Washington Park. I'll point these two out for you if you can't see them. The Washington Park site is along Stony Island just south of the Midway Plaisance.
That's Jackson.
Jackson Park, sorry. Oh my God. Sorry. I might as well just go home. And what was I saying? The best site is the Washington Park site is here along King Drive at Garfield. Okay. Am I okay?
You're good.
All right. Just one note, the Washington Park site also includes a parcel of university and city-owned land that is across the street west of King Drive. The foundation could also choose to build on a portion of this land as well, which is adjacent to the Green Line CTA station at 55th. This is a diagram of these two sites. Jackson Park on the right, Washington Park on the left. Both are around 20 acres, 20, 21, 22 acres. The blue dot we're showing as a diagram is really an example of the building footprint, which we think would be around 3 acres out of this 20, 21 acres. We may not need, the foundation may not need the full 20 acres. We don't really know at this point. We don't know the number of buildings, the design of the buildings, where they'll be located, or exactly how much space they'll occupy, but this diagram was for all of our benefit to understand the built area versus the open space area. Just to give you a benchmark, let's look at 4 past presidential libraries. So we have the Lyndon B. Johnson Library on the far left, a 30-acre site. The building area is 4 acres. The Jimmy Carter Library and Museum, 35-acre site, 2.5-acre building footprint. The William Clinton Library and Museum, 38 acres, 2-acre building footprint. George W. Bush Library and Museum, 23 acres, 3 acres. Now, the Barack Obama Presidential Center may be very different from this, but we thought it would be helpful to look at these as benchmarks. Let's look at some other aspects of these sites. Chicago is the center of the country, and these sites are in the center of an active transportation network. Because of this urban location, experts are estimating that the Presidential Center will see about 800,000 visitors a year. Getting to the Presidential Center by transit is critical. The Washington Park site, as I mentioned, is adjacent to the CTA Green Line 55th Street station, a critical adjacency making rail very accessible. The Jackson Park site is adjacent to the Metro Electric Line, the 59th, 60th Street station, and the 63rd Street station. These station improvements, which would be encouraged, will also help bring more people into this Chicago Park system. In addition, these sites are easy for visitors to access by car via the Dan Ryan, Lakeshore Drive, Garfield Boulevard, Stony Island, and Martin Luther King Drive. These sites are at a critical crossroads in the city and link very well to our international airports. Visitors will provide growth for local businesses, enlivening the commercial corridors. The Washington Park site, as you all know, sits on Garfield Boulevard and will enliven Garfield Boulevard. The Jackson Park site will enliven Stony Island and 63rd Street. These two sites are located among a number of great educational institutions, including the Hyde Park Academy. The Presidential Center would partner with these schools and others across the city to expand and enrich educational programming. And lastly, both sides would also complement a growing number of cultural organizations on the South Side. This slide shows the cultural institutions that are located in or near Jackson Park and Washington Park sites. And you can see the library, Presidential Center, would strengthen this cultural ribbon. A Southside Museum campus is forming, and the Presidential Center would be a great partner with this. In summary, speaking personally, there is a power and a global significance to these two park sites that make them appropriate ground upon which to set this historically unique American president's enduring footprint. I love these t-shirts and sweatshirts that say, let's bring this library home, so let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As we are on the doorstep of Jackson Park and next door to Washington Park, it is appropriate that we hear from both of the advisory councils. So I'd like first to hear from Louise McCurry, who is the chairperson of the Jackson Park Advisory Council. Louise, are you available? And while she's coming, Cecilia Butler, would you also come to the microphone? Representing the Washington Park Advisory Council. Good evening, please.
All right, folks. How many of you know that Jackson Park is one of the most amazing parks in the city? Put your hands together for Jackson Park. The Jackson Park Advisory Center has brought over 2,000 volunteers into Jackson Park to make it a beautiful place this year. It's a perfect place for children. For me, it's always about the children. So if we have the Presidential Library, obviously in Jackson Park, children will come to the park. Children will come to the libraries. One has taken my children to 4 presidential libraries around the country. I love presidential libraries because children see the possibilities for their life in 20 years. They see the struggles young people take to get to their education, get to college, and become President of the United States. Secondly, Jackson Park is absolutely the most beautiful natural setting, but we have gardens, and we have 3 beaches, and we have a wonderful Museum of Science and Industry, and we have the Japanese gardens. We have all these amazing places that a family could come visiting the Presidential Library and spend their day in Jackson Park. For many years, the south side of Chicago has been spent by the rest of the city told, had the illusion it's a dangerous place to be. We know better. We know that Jackson Park is the most amazing place to bring your children, to bring your families, your old people, your people in wheelchairs, because Jackson Park rocks. Not saying Washington Park doesn't rock, but Jackson Park rocks. It's a place where families can come and do wonderful things. So if the library comes to Jackson Park, we'll be excited. Of course, we always like to use less parkland, but we're hard at work in taking land that was used before by the Nike missile site, by old parking lots, and turning it back into green space so that our children have more space, of course, to play soccer and play football, because we have the best soccer teams and the best football teams in the city of Chicago and Jackson Park. And it's a place where older people can come and enjoy the peace and quiet, bird watching and looking at animals through the park. If you like playing tennis, we got bunches of tennis courts. It's all here. So Jackson Park is a great place. Jackson Park is a great place to hang out. We hope it comes to our park. If it does, we'll be very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Cecilia Butler, Washington Park Advisory Council.
Oh, I was in a meeting with her last week with her.
Has the park district ever had this many people to come to a hearing? No, I don't think so. You are all park lovers, obviously. I don't have to tell you about Washington Park. Just come and see. But I do have to tell you that because of a community torn between should we have it, should we? It wasn't until they started talking, meaning University of Chicago started talking about parkland, that it was serious. Yes, serious. Now, the most important thing is that, yes, we support the Presidential Library in Washington Park, the community, and the park, but only if he tells us so. We don't want anybody else making a decision for him, including the mayor. We don't even want to think that anybody else made that decision, but President Obama and his family. Now, since you brought in parkland, we feel that If the president says he wants Washington Park, we'll have to give it to him. But that land in the park cannot be given to someone else, to the city of Chicago even. It must stay with the park district. Because guess what? They've done an excellent job. Especially since 1986 when they were sued to do a good job. And why we here today as advisory council people, I'm not here just because
I love her.
of it. I'm here because I'm dedicated to my park. So the foundation, President Obama, we love you, but the idea that it must be beyond and be given to the city of Chicago, we think that. Keep it within the park district because we are #1 in this country as a park district.
Thank you very much. All right, what I would like to do is to have, to hear from the public, which is what we came to do. Who has the list of comment cards? Would you call the first 6 names, please?
Absolutely.
I'm asking people to line up, to respect the process. Remember, 2 minutes. If you want to hear from a wide variety of views, please call the names.
At this time, can I please have Dr. Brazier? Wallace Scott? Dr. Carol Adams? I'm going to Father Tony, M-A-Z-O-R from Mount Carmel. Alderman Ferretti.
Let us begin.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Dr. Byron Brazier. I'm the pastor of the Apostolic Church of God, but I also represent several community stakeholders and organizations recognized as the Network of Woodlawn and its 4 pillars.
Good evening.
Everyone is well aware of the economic impact that a library can have, a presidential library can have. In several interviews that I have been given, it's so important that we recognize that this library is important to the city of Chicago. But as Mr. Obama, President Obama, is the first black African American president, that his library should be in one of our communities. Part of the economic development, even though there may be some opposition, given the 1,000 acres between Washington Park, the Midway Plaisance, and Jackson Park, 20 acres does not seem to be a lot of land to be taken away. The third element is really about not what we want to be against or what we want to protest against, but what we want to build. Okay? There have been those who,
Please respect the process. Excuse me, please.
there have been those who would believe that this is a university land grant. I must say that I've worked with the university over the last several years, and the university, in their interest of having the presidential library here, has done an honest job of bringing together all of the stakeholders. And being an institution, you must have a institution that can compete against the other institutions, such as Hawaii and Columbia. And we should recognize that we, as a community, do have a strength in our community that can be used, and it's called the University of Chicago. Finally, I'd like to say this one last thing.